Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another great edition of my Grew Room Show. And for the Grew Room Show today, we got two awesome guests. It's two pro wrestlers, Teal Piper, who's the daughter of Rowdy Piper, and her boyfriend and wrestling partner Deimos, and they're called the House of Heathens. And I'm really looking forward to talking to them. We're going to talk to them all about wrestling, about films. It's going to be a fun time. I am Rocco Cross. I am the host at Stutters, as you could tell. I am the host of the Grew Room, and my interview with the House of Heathens will be coming up very soon. So stay tuned. Okay, welcome to Gru, and thank you both for coming on. And Taylor, I think you've definitely been on the show, but not the video show yet. You've been on the site.
Right. Well, thanks for having us on video. I'm glad
Yeah.
I look good enough for this now.
All right. So, like, the first thing I want to start asking, first, is what your name is it
Deimos.
Deimos or Dame
Deimos.
Deimos. Okay, well,
Yes.
I'm gonna start with you first. And what what drew you to this great sport, and like who are some of the guys that you love watching growing up?
Oh wow. That's a loaded question. I guess I've always wanted to be a pro wrestler ever since I was a kid. I just was a fan, and at a young age I was just one of those stereotypical boyhood dream. I grew up wanting to be a wrestler, and then I just never changed my mind. I think some of my first influences ever, would obviously have to be, like her dad, you
Yeah.
know. And then once I got a little bit into my teens, guys like Triple H and Stone Cold were a heavy influence, and then once I got into the business, there's guys like Randy Orton, AJ Styles that I use as a measuring stick. So, I mean, as the years progressed, so did my attention to detail.
Definitely, yes. And Tail, like everyone knows like who your dad is, and you basically grew up in the sport. And but when did you actually know like you wanted to train and do it?
For me, it was an evolution. I always enjoyed performing, and I came from entertainment, not sports entertainment. So I appreciated it as a craft, but I didn't see a lot of opportunity for what I wanted to do as like a woman in the sport necessarily.
Mhm.
So I never really went down that road. And then after my dad passed, I worked on his book, and I got to really see his love for the sport and his passion of it throughout his life. And the more I kind of did research, the more I wanted to continue um, knowing more about that. I guess it sort of started as a way for me to connect to him, but then I got in a ring and I started bumping, and I was like, I like this. That's weird. Didn't think I would like that part, but it got out a lot of frustration and anger that I have, and I fell in love with it immediately. And from that moment on, I was like, I know what I want to do. I want to I see a lot of women doing awesome things in the sports in the last few years, and I want to continue that on. I want to win all the women's championships I can, and I want to, basically continue on a new version of my dad's legacy, but for myself. So once I honed in on it, I got really focused.
Nice. And who wound up training you both? Like when who were your trainers?
Well, that's easy I can kind of multiple answer that. So he was actually, my dad was one of his mentors and trainers.
Oh
And so I
wow.
knew him through that from years ago. And when I got
Okay.
into professional wrestling, we kind of reconnected, and he started training me. So all of my training has come from him, which a
Oh.
lot of people don't know, but he's very good. He's modest, but he knows, you have to have the right training. And a lot of people don't realize when they're getting the right training or not, or don't know enough not to know. So I'm very fortunate that I've gotten the kind of training I have because he's very good.
I think I first broke in with Nikolai Volkov.
Okay.
he taught me how to do my first bumps and hit the ropes and stuff like that. And once I got my feet on the ground, her dad, kind of took me under his wing and mentored me a lot and taught me a lot of the
Wow.
things I needed to know. So I guess I would say her dad and Nikolai Volkov are the two like main, meat to my training.
Wow. Okay. I didn't know that went that far back. Like you actually
Yeah,
trained
yeah,
with reality and wow. Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So like how long did it take you both to get used to the bumps and the rope burns and like how do you get your body used to that when you're training?
Well, I think repetition is a lot to do with it. It feels like a car accident at first and your body starts to get callous to it. But I also think it comes with your personality. Like, not to toot my own horn, but I'm a lot tougher than I think a lot of girls are. And I realized that real quickly, very quickly into wrestling, that I can handle a lot of things most other girls can't. Not to say there's obviously a lot of tough women in this business, but I certainly am one of them. So I think if you don't have that, I don't know if it's a mental thing or what it is, but you have to have a certain amount
Mhm.
of being willing to get hurt and being okay with that. You don't want to get injured, but you're gonna, live rounds go off. The bumps suck. You have to be willing to be okay with that. And if you don't have that, I don't think you ever get used to it. You either come with that or not. What do you
Yeah.
think?
I mean, I guess I can't speak for everybody, but my personal approach to pro wrestling is before I even got into a wrestling ring, I did collegiate wrestling through middle school, high school, and college.
Oh
I
wow.
did a lot of combat sports. So when I first got in the ring and took bumps and hit the ropes and it hurt, I took it as a challenge. Like I wanted to see how much I could physically take every day. So it wasn't whether I was scared of it or worried about it. I was more like, how much more, punishment can my body handle? I think that's crazy to say, but it's the truth. I
Uh, oh yeah, definitely.
mean, I
I mean,
feel like you have to be
especially if
some.
you're doing it for years.
I think to do this for a living, you have to be to a certain level masochistic.
I was gonna say we're not healthy, are we?
Because you're choosing to throw your body on the floor for a living. So and you're asking people to do it to you.
Yeah,
So I
that's
mean, you have to be
true.
a certain level of crazy.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and Teal, like, I see how you do like the eye poke and stuff, and you're
How could I
you're
not? It's
you're
effective.
very good on the mic too. And I love when you did tail talks on WoW and you're a very good talker and of course the eye poke and the heel stuff and I mean I'm assuming like it's it's all from your dad, right?
Well, I mean, it's a combination of things. Obviously, the eye poke and the sleeper hold I do as a homage to him. I
Yeah.
actually learned the sleeper hold from him years ago and have used it in shoot fights more than once. But just so you know, so that was the first wrestling move I ever learned. And the eye poke, like I said, it's paying homage to him. It's also fun. It also works on people his size. So it's a very useful move when you're a girl in a man's world, let me tell you. But I lost track of what I was talking about there.
That's awesome. And what do you, when you both are heels, like what do you love most about being heels?
Well, um let me just say, natural heel.
Yes.
This guy has to really try to baby face, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
uh
Okay.
he has to pull from within to find that sweet spot. But I love it because I feel like there's more freedom. I feel like a
Okay.
lot of times, you know, I always feel torn because I enjoy what I do and I have fun doing it, but I also think that the core thing that I love about wrestling is getting to punch people, getting to get punched, getting to say shit I would never say outside a character, but I could say it and no one could be mad at me for it. Like, it's just more fun being a heel because you get to let that evil shit out. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
definitely.
And And just I remembered my previous thought when you were talking about Teal Talks. We're actually doing we're starting back up with segments that are sort of a homage to Piper's Pit. We're calling it Piper's Purgatory. And we'll
Oh, I
be
love it.
yeah, we have a whole setup coming for WrestleCon this year where people will be able to get up and I'll even interview them, both the
Oh,
fans and the
wow.
wrestlers. So it's probably one of our most exciting set projects that we've been working on. And you know, I like to talk clearly.
Yeah.
So it's one of those places that I feel very comfortable in and, you know, we're very excited about.
Yeah, for me, it's like there's layers to it. I was brought into the business being taught that, you know, heels sell tickets, babyface sells merch, and I like to be a needle mover, you know. So I think that the heels are the better storytellers because, you know, to be a babyface, you know, you can only be one note. You know, you're either Superman or you're a bad guy, and Boy Scouts aren't very, you know, two dimensional. They're very one dimensional people. They're the same person, you know. And as a heel, you get more room to be creative. You get more room to storytell. You know, if you look at comic books or even the Marvel Universe movies, you know, like the heel is the guy who moves from one segment to the next. He's the interesting one. We already know what the baby faces want. They want to save the day, but we don't know why the heels want to do what they want to do. We don't know
Sure.
their motivation because that's the only thing that ever changes. In good versus evil, good is always the same. Evil has different, you know, ways to approach the situation. So it gives us more room to wiggle. It gives us more creative freedom, and it moves the needle forward, which I think is more valuable than selling T-shirts, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And and when did you two like first meet, and who made like the first move and asked the person out?
Oh, well, like I said, we met years ago, just, you know, through my dad. Like we didn't really um hang out often, you know, he was like my dad's colleague and, you know, I didn't it took years of like being familiar and then we reconnected in Los Angeles at what was it?
LA Fan Fest.
LA Fan Fest in 2020. He had just had a major surgery on his neck. I was about to get my knee rebuilt because I tore out my ACL.
Oh no.
So we ended up, and then like 3 days after that, COVID hit, and everything was shut down. Um, you know, the rehab facilities in LA, there was one open like an hour away from both of us, and so we started rehabbing together and just hanging out every day. He started, you know, just sort of progressed, like going over matches and hanging out nonstop until I, you know, became something he couldn't get rid of. Just nonstop annoying.
It was locked down together. Yeah,
Yeah, and who made the first move?
that's hard because I think we
I
made.
kind of feel like it was mutual. Like, yeah, I kind of
Okay.
feel like we both kind of did.
Yeah. Yeah.
I assume I was smoother though. I was probably really cool. I'm sure he felt very, very intimidated.
I was very scared. I was very scared.
Well, yeah, because you don't want to get the hold on you, the
Yeah, I don't want to get put to sleep.
sleeper
Yeah.
hold. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I
Or
still
a
don't.
solid
I
iPhone.
still don't.
Or the eye poke. Yeah. And when did the House of Heathens start? Like, how did you come up with the gimmick, the name?
Well, the gimmick is pretty easy. We basically pull a lot from the Purge movies. You know,
Oh yeah, I love
you
those
know,
films.
during the pandemic, you know, we watched a lot of wrestling, old and new, because of tape study, and we saw a lot of differences between the way it used to be when ratings, you know, were where they should be, and then we saw where it is today, and we thought, well, what's the difference? And we felt, you know, collectively that it was the type of people in the industry. So we just kind of would always vent about how we should, you know, purge the business of the trash and, you know, keep the people in it that belong, you know, and we're a pretty good measuring stick of retro goes new school, you know, and can be the judgment of that. So we just always thought that the purge thing was a good idea, and to come up with the House of Heathens, you know, just bouncing a lot of ideas off of each other, and eventually narrowed it down to that one.
I felt like a lot of people felt it was sacrilegious of wrestling for us to come at it the way we did. So
Yes.
it kind of played into the heathens
Yes.
part of it.
Yes. Yes.
Like,
Yes.
Okay. And you both have worked for Tony, like for Ring of Honor and Teal. You've been on Dark and the Casino Battle Royal. So
Mhm.
how was your experiences like working for Tony in both AEW and Ring of Honor?
Hmm. How do I say
You
that?
know, I will say this because I've worked with WWE as well for many years, and Japan for years. I've worked
Mhm.
everywhere there is to work. Um, I think the biggest difference between AEW and a place like WWE is you get the ability, if you're good at your job, to show
Okay.
that. WWE is a well-oiled machine that is that way because they micromanage every single thing every person does on the roster, which is needed. A lot of people need to be reeled in or thrown out. And but AEW just allows the locker room to kind of get themselves over or lose themselves. And if you're one of those performers that is good enough to bet on themselves, then AEW gives you the creative freedom to show that. So I think that's a pro of
Yeah.
being there is you can put your own matches together. You can
Mhm.
come up with your own cutoffs, your own stories, things like that. That's what I appreciated about being there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It feels like if like I met Tony, or we met Tony a few times now, and he's always been very pleasant to us, but we
Okay.
never really have worked directly with him. Like we usually, you get there and you're working, with whoever you're working with and putting together
Yeah.
that match. So like he said, like it opens up a lot of freedom for the wrestlers because it's just kind of, you figure it out. So there's pros and cons, I think. Like
Yeah, to give
Well,
you
yeah.
perspective, I think what made WWE the most successful it was during like the golden era and attitude era was a lot of the talent had a direct line to Vince McMahon.
True.
And that being taken away makes it harder to collaborate. You know, um, give you perspective, in 10 to 15 years of me working with WWE on and off, I've had the same amount of conversations with Vince McMahon that I've had with Tony Khan in 3 shows of AEW.
Oh wow. Okay.
So that goes to show you that like that disconnect, you know,
Yeah.
isn't always the best, but it's there. It's just no, it's just the way, the different companies decide to do business. And as a performer, it's, your job to adapt.
Wow. Okay. Okay. And from you both traveling all over the world, wrestling all over, do you have any fun road stories?
Well, go ahead.
fun. They also I mean, it's one of those things where when you hear them from other people, you're like, that's hilarious, but when you live it, you're like, I don't know, it didn't feel fun to me. uh when we were in, what was it, Atlanta?
Yeah.
We did a show in Atlanta and we got in pretty late, like probably around midnight. And I don't even know who this promoter was, but he was already kind of being a headache. And I was like,
Uh,
all I could think in my head is this is what my dad used to talk about. This right here. Why is everything being harder than it needs to be? So this guy brings us to this hotel. And I say hotel very loosely. This thing is like boarded up. I swear to God, there's some sort of gang deal happening. Like, there's nobody at the front desk. I feel like it's abandoned, and he just brought us to a building. The
oh
lights are
no.
flickering like a horror movie. There's cockroaches
Oh
everywhere. Like we
no.
get up this elevator, and I shit you not, we get to the room. There's a hooker in the bed
With the TV on
with
smoking.
the TV on, and then this guy looks at us, and it's just like, can you give me an hour to clean this up? I let some of the boys use it last night, and I was like, you can buy us a different hotel room at a different place is what you can do.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
I think
Oh,
that
it
some of
sounded
those,
like it.
And it sucked because I was very tired.
I think some of the best stories I think would be when we look back at something in hindsight. Like
Okay.
in the moment, it might not be
Yeah.
so funny, but looking back at it is, like we did a show in Athens, Greece, and that was our big European debut. We got to wrestle in Athens, where
Oh,
the
that's
gladiators
awesome.
battled.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We were all over the show, including the main event. And the morning of that show, she had horrific food poisoning.
like the worst food
Oh
poisoning
no.
of my life.
And we were three huge long segments of this show. We were the opening 20 minutes, we were in the middle for 10 minutes, and then we were the finishing 45 minutes in the main event.
And it
And
was TV over there.
it was TV,
Yeah.
and all over Europe. And we were heavily advertised, so we needed to bring it. And
Yeah.
she was throwing up horrifically in the locker room, trying not to
So
pass
bad.
out.
Oh
And then,
my
like, I
God.
think, again, it was a stressful day,
Well,
but
yeah.
in hindsight, looking back at that, she delivered. She went out there, she cut her promos, she had her match. I had my match. She did her job as a manager for 45 minutes out there, and
Okay.
we were able to structure that show and the matches and everything to where in between every segment she could run in the back and throw up again.
And I would come in the back and just projectile
Yeah.
vomit. I think the best part was during the main event, because that was the longest segment.
Uh-huh.
I'm managing out there, and he looks at me, and I was like, I had that look, and he was like, all right. And he went and fought into the back so I could follow him, let me throw up, and then they fought back out. I'm like,
Yeah.
following behind him.
Yeah.
I felt so bad. It was really gross.
But I mean, I think the takeaway from that story is I don't know very many people that aren't on television currently
Yeah.
that could handle that like she handled that.
Okay.
That audience, the people at home watching on camera, nobody would have known that she was dying. She delivered every segment she needed to at a high level.
It was definitely one of the harder things I've ever done.
Yeah, so like
I'm
that goes
sure
to
it
prove that
was.
when the stakes are high enough, no matter what's happening, she can handle,
Yeah.
situations. And that was really cool to see that happen.
Wow.
I hope it
Oh,
never
man.
happens again, but I'm glad I can do it.
I hope so too.
Because I remember, I'm buddies with Edge, Adam Copeland, and one
Yeah.
of his biggest, hardest, stories similar to that before I was ever even with her or knew this ever happened was when he did that famous TLC match at WrestleMania 16 in the year 2000. He had 102-degree temperature flu.
Oh my God.
And threw up twice underneath the ring apron while he was doing a ladder match, at WrestleMania.
Wow.
So imagine, being at WrestleMania, the Super Bowl of what we do in a very,
Yeah.
big time, high stakes, very violent and dangerous match with two other tag teams and having a flu and a fever and throwing up constantly and going out there and no one would have known. And that always stuck with me until we were in Athens and she did the same thing. And I'm like, man, that was impressive. She did what Edge did. That was impressive.
Wow.
Yeah.
He had told me that story, and I was like, I guess I'll try to get under the ring and throw up if I can't make it to the back. I had that in my mind as a possibility.
It is what it is. It's what we do as professionals. We make it work.
Wow, that's something.
Yeah.
And the one another thing I'm going to ask you both is the movie that your dad is famous for, They Live.
Yes.
And that is one of my all-time favorite films. Me and my buddy, we watch it like a lot. We
I would have
love
thought
it.
it was The Crow.
The Crow, the Crow is too, yes. And the film like actually aged very well, because if you look at the film and you look at the world now, you could see a lot of things
You
from the
always
film
said
that
it was a
happened.
documentary.
Yes. So, what does this film mean to you both? I mean, of course, your dad and you trained with him, you worked with him. So, like, what's this film mean to you both?
I've always been a big sci-fi fan, and I actually probably get it from my dad, but very into conspiracy theories. Whether I believe them or not, I go straight down the wormhole. I want to believe, I get very bored that life might not be interesting. So, like, we used to stay up all hours of the night talking conspiracy theories. So I've always been, as such, I've always been a huge sci-fi buff of, anything dystopian, anything like that. So I always say, even if he hadn't been in the film, I probably would have still loved the movie, because the concept is so up my alley of something I'm interested in. And like you said, it really translates to these last couple years, doesn't it? Like, surreal what's been in the news, just crazy.
I know.
And I think that it surprisingly stood the test of time better than probably anybody thought it would. You know, it's more relevant today than back then when it was supposed to just be a play
Yes.
on Reaganomics.
I mean, I love the movie. I like what it, the story and everything it talks about. I think it's cool to see a movie that's that old and
Hmm.
still enjoyable to watch. Because it's hard sometimes to, watch a movie from the 80s or
I
90s.
know.
These days, it's like, all right, I guess. But like, there's certain movies, like Scarface or something like that, and They Live is one of those movies where
Yeah.
no matter how old you get, it's still good. It's still
Oh yeah.
entertaining. You know, it doesn't
Oh,
need crazy special effects to work.
But man, it'd be
definitely.
cool.
But it would be really great if it did
I
have
know,
some of that
right? I would
modern day
love to see like
technology.
a modern, huge budget behind it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right? Yes, exactly.
I think I heard that it's like they've always had problems with the rights with Universal or something. Like every 10 years or so,
Oh.
they talk about doing a remake. I don't know, but I think I heard recently that is back in the works as far
Oh,
as moving
really?
forward. So maybe they will actually do a
Yeah.
either a sequel or a remake. I'm not sure what, but
Yeah.
Oh,
be
wow.
cool.
Okay.
It's a good
Yeah,
time for it.
it definitely is. Yes.
So if you had to
Like,
pick between The Crow and Chucky, which one would it be?
probably The Crow. Like for
Yeah.
some reason when that movie first came out, I was uh completely obsessed with that film. I was like putting the gothic stuff on and all that stuff, and
Uh, so I take it you're a big fan of Sting.
yeah, well, yeah, Sting, yeah, definitely, because he does have the crow gimmick, and
Yeah,
his final match is actually coming up too, and
sadly. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
nuts.
yeah, like the Crow was always like when I watched that movie, I went through like a whole like goth phase and stuff, so that's why that movie is like right up there.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Uh, did you actually, Teal, did you actually get to like keep any props from the movie? Like, did your father have like any props or like notes or scripts from the movie that got handed
If
down
if
to you?
if you had any like paper like script type stuff, my mom would have had it. But
Okay.
I'm trying to think. I mean, I think the outfit he wore we have somewhere. I believe so. I haven't seen it in years. It's probably in storage if we do. But like more than anything, he just had a really cool poster that used to freak me out when I was a kid and like stuff like that, But there are not really too many props that he kept. Lots of
Okay.
merchandise though.
And I'm gonna ask like one final question because I know you both have something to do. As
I
you can
go
tell, I'm a
work out.
horror.
What were you saying?
As you can tell, I'm a horror guy. So, are there any horror films that you both love to watch?
Ooh.
Ooh. Well, okay, I'll answer. For me, I think of the modern era. I say highly the modern era.
Hmm.
I think the best scary movies are The Conjuring, like that
Oh
whole
my God,
the
yes,
Conjuring, what do they call it? The world
Yeah.
universe, the Conjuring
yes.
universe of those movies. Minus the Nun. I think that kind of I mean it wasn't bad, it just wasn't as good as the other
The
ones.
nun
I
just looks like
know.
Marilyn Manson to me. I can't be scared by it. Like I'm like,
Like that
okay,
that
The
Anna
Conjuring was
that
great.
that Annabelle
It
doll,
was.
it still haunts me.
Mm,
I think
Yes,
it's
that was
very
freaky.
hard. It's very hard to be scary, like legitimately
Hmm.
these days
Hmm.
without that like boo factor. Like something that, never anybody jumps at something, but like I think that's something that would actually make you uncomfortable. The Conjuring is the only movie of the modern era that's ever affected me in that way. It was like, you know.
yeah.
Oh no, I get it. That freaked me out. I'm a big horror guy.
The movie Nope, Jordan Peele is one of my favorite directors.
Nice.
I think he's like the iconic director of our time, like that we've seen in a while. But that movie Nope disturbed me, more disturbing than scary, I'd say. But like
Okay.
when that UFO was eating people and the monkey scene, I thought that movie scared the crap out of me in a disturbing way where you're just thinking about it a week later. You
Yeah.
know, that one got me a lot.
I tried with the Nope movie. I found it entertaining, you
I
Hmm.
know,
don't think he liked slow moving.
but I didn't find it
Scared.
scary. I was just like,
You would if you were eaten by a UFO,
I
Deimos.
don't
Okay?
know.
If a UFO ate you,
I
you're
just,
digesting.
I guess.
That would be scary. If a gorilla was murdering everyone around you. I bet you think you could take the gorilla.
I'd take that gorilla.
I knew it.
I mean, it
I don't
definitely
know.
was a slow burn, but
Yeah.
once the action started happening, it was fun.
Mm-hmm. I love those kind of movies a lot, though. The slow
Okay.
burns with like
Yeah.
the mental fuckery.
Not me so
Yeah,
much.
definitely. And where can fans follow you both? Follow the House of Heathens at.
Yeah, I'm mostly on Instagram because there's so much social media to keep on up with. But I'm Teal Piper on Instagram, Teal Piper on TikTok, at RL Teal on Twitter.
At official Deimos on Instagram and real Deimos on Twitter. I don't do TikTok.
He
Sorry.
has a TikTok.
I
He
have
never
one.
checks it. I know this because I send amazing videos that never get opened.
And most importantly, though, is we will be at WrestleMania all week, doing all the events and all this stuff, doing WrestleCon all 3 days, doing the Piper's Purgatory there. So please come out and say hello.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely will because I live in Philly. So,
So we're gonna try the Philly cheesesteak place.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
across the street from the ECW arena we hear about.
Okay. Wait, there's not any across from the ECW arena, but
Oh,
I
Well,
mean, you
if
got
you don't have any referrals, slide them into my DM. I want to try.
okay.
we're
Okay.
there for
Now
the food.
there's definitely a couple places that are good. Like Pat Steaks is the one that everybody knows, and Gino Steaks, but I think there's some that are better than them. So I'll definitely message you that.
Awesome. Thank
Can't
you.
wait. Yeah, I guess we will see you then.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'll definitely be there.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you both for coming on. And Teal, it was good to actually do a video interview with you instead of the
Yeah.
written ones.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, have a great night and great training, and thanks again.
All right. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.